Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today about the time series expert webinar, Going Mobile with Mendix Native. Today will be all about how to leverage Mendix Native for truly intuitive mobile experiences. In a moment, I will elaborate on the agenda. First, I want to say that this webinar will last for approximately 1 hour. At the end, we'll have a live Q&A. Our expert, Freek Brinkhuis, will answer the questions that you have. You can put all your questions in the GoToMeeting chat box, and then we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So for now, let's start with the introductions. Freek, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Martijn. So my name is Freek Brinkhuis. I'm a Mendix consultant at Time Series and recently started in a role of front-end architect. I've been working with Time Series now for approximately 3.5 years. Mostly worked on front-end projects and with my previous experience as iOS developer, focus a lot on the mobile aspect at the moment with Mendix.
All right, thanks, Freek. So my name is Martijn van Kuik. I'm sales manager and senior Mendix developer at Time Series. I've joined Time Series now over 2 years ago because of the extensive experience in no-code and front-end expertise. And so I'm really happy today to be hosting together with Freek this webinar. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about Time Series, and then Freek is going to take over to do the content about Mendix Native. So let's start with the agenda. So I'm going to start, as said, with some more background information about Time Series. Then Freek is going to tell you why it's now so important to start with going mobile. Then we'll do a Mendix Native app in 10 minutes live. We'll tell you also about what his considerations are in developing with Mendix Native. Then we'll have a bit more information about how Time Series can make you successful. And we'll end with the live Q&A, and you can add your questions in the chat tool of GoToMeeting. So let's start with some more information about Time Series, who we are. We are an expert company in low-code, big data, machine learning, and IoT, and we combine those technologies to develop applications that save our customers time, generate new revenue, or generates even whole new revenue, because we're able to create whole new business models. And where did that all start? It all started in the energies and utilities market, where our founders, Eric Gauka and Michel Schild, saw the emergence of the smart meter, which created enormous amounts of data. And at that moment, there was no other solution that could process and analyze all this data. So that's when they decided to develop a time series solution. That's also where our names come from. It's a solution that can process all this data in time. And we're still doing that for one of the biggest energies and utilities companies in the Netherlands, Eneco. We're processing over billions of data messages a day. But when we went with the solution to other companies, they said, okay, that is a great solution, but we miss a good front end. So that's when we decided to start working with Mendix. And we've grown really fast after that decision. We've won several hackathons. We're the most innovative Mendix partner, and we won several awards for being one of the fastest growing companies in the Netherlands. And what does that mean to our customers? That we do not only develop low-code apps, but we also have the expertise to integrate your apps with low-code, with big data, with machine learning, with IoT sensors, so we can develop really the innovative applications for our customers. Then we've grown to over 130 consultants, divided over 4 teams. To start, the innovation team, which is a team which has all this knowledge about big data, machine learning, IoT. Then we have the Mendix consultants, divided over several certifications. We have 4 MVPs, 15 experts, 34 advanced developers, and 35 rapid developers, which might not mean a lot to all of you, but these are certifications that have been granted by Mendix based on their level of expertise. And it's really important to have a high level of certification to provide high quality applications for our customers. So we're really proud of this level of certification. We also have a UX UI team, which are key in being focused on user-focused applications. And finally, we also have a small BI team. And it all started for us in the Netherlands, where two of our main offices are in Utrecht and Rotterdam. And when Mendix went to the United States, they asked an expert partner to join them, and we joined them to the US, where we have now 3 offices. And later we've expanded to Germany and to Canada. Then some of our customers. Craig is going to tell you more about some interesting Mendix Native cases. What I could tell you more about the Deloitte case. We've developed an application for them, the Chama app, which is a really cool case actually. It's an application that's being used in developing countries where gas is key to cook your food. So it's really important to have gas all the time. And this is an application that helps people to find the nearest supply of gas. So it's a sort of an Uber for gas. You search on a mobile app for the nearest bikers that could provide your gas, and you get a result with the ratings for each biker and which biker is nearest by. So it's a really cool case of a Mendix mobile application that we developed. Then our smart app templates. We do not only provide Mendix expertise, Mendix Native expertise, we also develop smart app templates, which are 80% finished applications that solve challenges that we see at many customers. So for instance, the field service planning solution, it's a generic planning solution which takes into account many business rules like certain expertise, the rosters of mechanics, and preferences of mechanics. But what we see as a true value is the 20%, which takes into account the integration with the back end of our customers. So for instance, to retrieve orders or tickets that could be planned by our solution, or for instance, specific business rules to the processes of our customers. So that was the introduction of time series. Then Freek is going to tell you more about why you should go mobile now and why is it now so important. Freek, give the floor to you.
Cool, thank you, Martijn. Let me quickly share my screen as well. So I will take over the presentation. All right. So firstly, I will talk a bit about Mendix, or why Mendix Mobile is actually so important, and then afterwards we'll do a quick 10-minute demo to just show you guys what we can achieve with Mendix Native as fast as we can. But the first most important question, which we can answer with a very nice quote from one of the principal analysts at Forrester, is why mobile is becoming so important. And as he describes, is that mobile is becoming not only the new digital hub, but also the bridge to the physical world. And that's why mobile will affect more than just your digital operations. It will transform your entire business. And the reason why I picked this quote is because it actually pinpoints the exact pain point that a lot of companies have at the moment. They have these big legacy pieces of software, or they have this huge web portals that are accessible for their employees, but they're spending more and more time on their mobile phones, and they cannot reach either their employees or their customers through those mobile gateways that are becoming so important. To elaborate on that, it's good to look at where we are at right now. So in 2019, over 204 billion apps were downloaded on mobile phones, which is a huge amount considering the amount of people wandering this globe. And as expected, by the end of 2020 this year, 3.5 billion people, which is half of the world's population, will have access to a smartphone. And on average, in the end, they will have about 40 apps installed. So looking back at that quote, why should this matter to you? Well, your customers or your employees are actually spending most of their time working on their mobile phone. And that's either to just browse on their social media platform, or they are ordering stuff through an ordering app for food, like we have Thuisbezorgd in the Netherlands or Deliveroo, or they're doing their purchases, they shop their clothing online. But also simple tasks like tracking their package that is being delivered by, for instance, PostNL in the Netherlands. Another important thing is that we're kept away from the offices more and more in these days, since Corona prevents us from visiting our offices. And that means that people do use their notebook a lot, but they also use their phone a lot to communicate with each other. Like everybody uses WhatsApp or Facebook or Telegram to stay in touch with each other. And that also comes down to the fact that your employees already use their phone for a lot of general tasks. If you consider, for instance, people working in the field, they already use their mobile phone for navigation to go to a certain location, or they use their camera on their mobile phone to take pictures of stuff they need to register for your system, or just basic communications, communicating with each other and handing over tasks, or just doing a simple phone call to their superior to tell them what they're doing. And last but not least, it has been a topic that we've discussed a couple of times already before in a blog and in a video that we recorded. Mendix currently has two types of mobile apps. The first one is the hybrid application. The second one is native, that we'll discuss today. But also, to elaborate a bit on the hybrid case, it might be that you have a hybrid Mendix application and you stumbled upon the issue that not only Apple updated their guidelines for accepting applications in the App Store, so preventing applications developed with phone gap of being accepted in the App Store, but also, and that's actually quite recent, that Adobe, one of the primary backers of Cordova, which is the underlying technology for hybrid applications, they dropped support for both phone gap, so that also means Android applications, but they also retracted themselves as backers for the Cordova project. So basically it means that their biggest investor dropped support for Cordova, essentially meaning that hybrid apps are simply no longer a feasible solution for developing applications. To give some examples of some rather cool applications that we built with time series over the years, one of them is actually Oxio, and this is a perfect example of how to reach your customers with mobile applications. In this case, Oxio, one of our first customers, was actually one of the first companies in the Netherlands that fitted houses of their customers with smart meters. And those smart meters were able to register real-time the usage of electricity and gas in every single household that had that device installed. At first, at time series, we created a big data platform, and that big data platform was responsible of reading that information real-time into a big database. And with that, we were able to deliver them with some analytics about the usage of gas and electricity. And at that moment, Oxio thought that's really cool. I mean, it adds value to us, but we also want to add value to our customers with this. And to do that, they created, or they asked us to develop the Oxio app. And the Oxio app is for the customers of Oxio that had that smart meter, and they could log into their application and were actually able to get real-time insights in their energy usage. And with that also, as you can see in the image on the right-hand side, see what the usage is in terms of money. Are they meeting their annual budget? Like in the Netherlands, you pay upfront for the power and gas you use, but you might actually not use that much as you pay for. So that means at the end of the year, you will get some in return. So the idea of Oxio was to give their customers insight, and with just a simple mobile app displaying the data that was already retrieved from their devices, they added a huge beneficial app for their customers. The second one, actually one of my personal favorites, is the application that we developed for the Sociale Verzekeringsbank, in English, the Social Security Bank. And the Social Security Bank is responsible of handling all social security payments in the Netherlands for people that are either getting their retirement fund from the government, or are applicable for other social benefits from the Dutch government. And the issue that they had is that people who live abroad with and are receiving a social security payment from the Dutch government need to prove to either a embassy outside of the Netherlands or at a consulate that they are alive. And the current process means that they had stacks of paper that they had to fill in, and they had to physically go to an embassy, which in some cases might lead to like 2 or 3 hours travel time, depending on where you live. And that this was something that was also easy to fraud with, because you could just send anyone over to a local embassy with the papers and say, yeah, my grandmother is alive, so we would still like to get her financial benefits. She is just not capable of coming here. So the solution that we came up with was to completely digitalize this process in the form of a mobile application. So the application had a couple of steps that had to be followed by the end user. And those steps included, for instance, taking a photograph of a identification card, which we later then could verify with the Dutch government to see if it's actually a legitimate document. And secondly, create a 3D face map. And with that 3D face map, we were able to use some AI algorithms to actually determine if that user was the actual person, he was alive, but also the same person that was at the photograph of their identification card. And with all those different kinds of inputs, we created just one app that cut down the entire process of filling in all those papers, handing it in at an embassy, posting it to the Dutch government in the Netherlands, down to follow 5 steps on the mobile app. It only takes you 1 minute, and we know you're the person you say you are, and you are still applicable for your social benefits. Another good example is from the Koninklijke Roeiersvereniging Eendracht in the Netherlands, and this company is responsible for mooring all the ships in the harbor of Rotterdam. And a lot of years ago, there was an accident where one of the larger oil tankers was cut loose from their mooring lines and started to drift through the harbor, causing a lot of structural damage. And KRVE, they created a system called short tension, which is a dynamic mooring system that could ease the mooring line or make it a bit tighter the moment that the ship moved a little bit. This allowed the ships to be way better secured to the harbor docks, but also gave a lot of insights because those devices had a lot of IoT sensors and were generating a ton of data. And it's the same as with the Oxio application. With Mendix, at Time Series, we created the mobile application to give the captains of the ship, but also the employees of the KRVE, real-time insights of what the current tensions were on certain mooring lines in the harbor. And also we were able to deliver real-time alerts or notifications if there might be an incident or if one of the lines is too tight in this case. So as we have those examples, the real reason why we're here is to hear a bit more about Mendix Native. And Mendix Native was announced at Mendix World 2019. So maybe some of you have viewed all the videos that we saw last week with Mendix World 2020. And it's only a year ago since Mendix 8 arrived, including Native. And with that release, Mendix proudly presented the platform as now being capable of building consumer-grade true native mobile applications. Well, at the beginning, the platform was still a bit limited in terms of functionality that you could create for native mobile apps, but gradually throughout this year, it grew exponentially in the amounts of functionality, making it, from my perspective, currently the most suitable platform to create native applications, and especially when you combine this with Mendix. So most importantly, the reason why I created the Mendix Native platform is to also replace the already aging Mendix hybrid platform. But that was not just the only reason, because the apps that were developed with Mendix Native, they are built on top of a technology called React Native. And for some of you that might not know what that actually means, React Native is a cross-platform native programming language based on JavaScript that was developed by Facebook. And was released just a few years ago. And this platform is actually already used by by the most biggest companies in the world. I mean, all the applications that are delivered from Facebook, like Facebook itself, Instagram, or WhatsApp, they have all been developed with React Native, but also the apps like Starbucks or Uber or McDonald's. So it's a platform that has a really big community and also a lot of important companies using it, making it really future-proof. And this was also very important when they come up with a native platform, that it should be a platform that is capable of lasting for a lot of years. And also very important, the user experience, because a native application compared to a web app, as you actually develop with a hybrid Cordova app, just feels like it's more intuitive. And if you have developed already, if you already developed the Mendix Native app, you might already experience this as well, that the interaction with the application just feels better, the transitions work better, buttons look like they belong in an application, and you no longer have a Mendix application installed on your phone that just looks a bit odd compared to the other apps that you might have on your phone. Very important as well, because the platform underneath Mendix Native is based on a technology developed by Facebook and already used by tons of developers worldwide. It's easy to extend as well. Mendix is known for its ease of extendability by making custom widgets or pluggable widgets, but by using React Native, it also opens a door for a ton of existing third-party libraries that could be leveraged within the Mendix Native app. And if you've seen the presentation by Denny Roest from Mendix World this year about creating React Native apps, you might have seen that just within a couple of minutes, he was able to create an application that was able to display a timeline without actually writing that much code. And that's the benefit of using Mendix Native with those extendabilities, because if you look at the right-hand side, you see some statistics from NPM, which is one of the biggest software or JavaScript libraries. And what I did was I did a quick search to just look at the amount of packages that were available for Cordova in the first place. And as you can see, that's 8,500 packages, more or less. But once you do that same search on React Native, you will find that there's more than 27,000 packages. And those can vary from having, let's say, PDF viewers or signature widgets. But if you look carefully, you will even find some confetti cannon animation frameworks that you could install. And the fun part of this is, especially with the new pluggable widgets framework that Mendix developed, it's a lot easier to create those, cutting the time of custom implementations in your native app as well. Very important as well with native applications is, of course, offline first. And when people ask me why does offline first matter, because everybody has a mobile phone and we have pretty good 4G coverage in the Netherlands or in Europe, the easiest question is, did you ever try this in a WhatsApp message from a nuclear bunker? And that might sound a little bit weird, but there are a lot of locations on this planet, especially with bigger enterprises, that have a very bad coverage in terms of just normal cellular connection, but even Wi-Fi. For example, bigger shipyards, they have those big dry docks where they work on the steel structures of the ship. Whenever you're inside one of those ships, there is literally no coverage at all. And because of that, Mendix created the offline first approach with Mendix 7 or late Mendix 7 for their hybrid applications. And what it means is not just simply your application has to work offline, but also that you think about the architectural decisions, like what tasks do you really have to do online and what kind of data do you need offline? Because what easily happens with hybrid applications is that people just developed a hybrid app, didn't really think about the mobile structure of these applications in terms of data, and then easily downloaded gigabytes of data from the server to their mobile applications without actually touching a percentage or 99% of it. So the idea behind the offline first approach is not just the app has to work offline, but we need to make sure that whatever we do with the offline app is important as well. And we're not just creating a simple view of what we have in our normal database or normal application. So to summarize this, I wanted to give a quick demo on how to create a Mendix app in 10 minutes. And what I did is I will quickly show you. We created previously an application that we called the Desk Manager. And in these current days with the COVID-19 virus, we are sort of allowed to go back to the office, but in limited amounts of people. We need to keep our safe distances between desks and between walking throughout the office. And to make sure that we have a good reservation system for this, we created an app called the Desk Manager. It is currently still in development, so please don't pay that much attention to the look and feel of it. But what it basically means is that we have an application that allows people to log in with their credentials, and they are able to make a reservation for a day whenever they want to go to the office. So let's see, I want to go to the office on Monday the 14th. And okay, we only have one room at the moment in our office. But in that room, we have 4 seats available for that day. I want to select that seat and I want to make a reservation. Perfect, it is registered, so I can see the availability for other people that are there as well. But the issue is it's a web application at the moment, and maybe whenever I'm walking my dog outside in the morning and there's something happening wrong with him or there's a lot of traffic, I want to be able to quickly cancel that reservation without having to open my laptop and go to the website, cancel it, etc. So let's just see if we can create a quick mobile native application that is capable of getting all the reservations that we have for one specific person and are able to maybe cancel a reservation. Oh, I accidentally clicked on Sunday, and then of course our office is closed. So the first thing we need to do whenever we are considering a native application is adding a navigation profile to our Mendix app. And doing that is very easy. We just select the native mobile template, and we will have some default functionality that we need to address, like the default homepage or role-based homepage. To do that, we are going to create a module in Mendix called Native App. And in there, we want to have a pages folder. And the first thing we need to make sure whenever we launch the app is that we can log in. By default, with a native application, Mendix allows you, or actually requires, that you have anonymous users, so that your application can also be used whenever you don't have any user system in your app. But we have, so we actually need our own login page. So we're just going to create a blank page called login with our default styling. And we want to create a simple sign-in page with a username and password. So the next step will be that we create a object in our database or an entity called login. We're not going to store it actually in our database. We're just going to keep it on our mobile phone. It will have a username attribute. It will have a password attribute. And we want to show that on our landing page. So that means that we need to create a data view. And that data view will need to create that actual object we just added to our domain model. So we're going to create a simple data source nanoflow called login create. And this nanoflow will, as expected, create an object. We call it login. And we're going to return it to the data view throughout this nanoflow. And immediately we will see that we have a couple of issues, a couple of errors actually. The reason is that the nanoflow, we should define who can use this nanoflow. Well, this will be right now nobody, so that means that we have to add our user roles. And for this specific app, we will have an anonymous user. This will be the user that will actually only do the sign-in, and we will have our regular user that will be able to look at the reservations that he's made and cancel them if necessary. So now we can select the role that can trigger this source, and that's only anonymous because the user is already logged in, so he doesn't really need it anymore. And now we can easily add a text box for our username. And immediately we can already apply some nice aesthetics to the application, because especially on mobile phones, when you have a rectangular shaped screen, I don't think horizontal labels really work, that we have username next to our input box. So let's make it vertical, so it will be on top of it. And then we also need a password text field. And once again, we can link this to the attribute called password. And most importantly, of course, we don't want people to display their password to everyone around them whenever they're in the train, for instance. So we're going to show this field as password. And last but not least, we need to link this actual screen to an action, a nanoflow in Mendix, to trigger the login action. So we're going to call this action login. And we're going to rename this label to login for the button. We're going to open this nanoflow. And whenever you start a native application, there are a lot of modules that you can get out of the box whenever you start with a native app starter kit. And one of them includes, for instance, a sign-in action. And in that sign-in action, we can provide the information that we need whenever we want to sign in as user. So we're going to tell the action that we have a username and password. We don't currently need the output. And again, we need to define, okay, anonymous will be the user of this specific nanoflow. So that's that. apparently I forgot something. I forgot to link the username attribute to the text box. So we've done that. And right now we're actually capable of logging in. First we only need to make sure that this will be the default homepage of the app. And why this will be the default homepage, I'll explain a bit later, because currently you will see that there is a lot of errors. And this has all to be due to the fact that no one can actually access this object. So we need to make sure that whenever you're an anonymous user, you open this application for the first time and you're going to create that login object, you need to be able to create it, and you should be able to actually enter a username or password. And this is just all basic Mendix security functionality that comes out of the box. And it will complain currently that the administrator, he can access, or the user can access this application, but he cannot access this object yet. And that means that we also need to make sure that the actual administrator and user can log into this application. So right now we're just going to pretend that we log in, and we're going to create an application to view our reservations. So we're going to create a reservation overview page. I'm going to press OK. Oh, I first have to select a template. And we have our page over here. So the easiest and best way to display something in a native app is always with a list if you have more than one thing to show. So that means that we have to retrieve our objects. And as we want to show our reservations, luckily this is already included in our application. So we're going to select reservation, press OK. Well, we want to fill the contents. And currently we only want to show the date and the name of our reservations. Preferably we want to sort them, of course, on the date that they were at, that the actual reservation will take place. And we want to show it like this. Okay, this page will be only visible to the user specific for this module. And now we can connect it to a, oh, whoops, my bad. I attach my phone to the presentation just to make sure that I can demo the application in a bit through QuickTime video. So we're going to start it up right after this. But the role is homepage. So we have our user role user, and we want to make sure that whenever the user is logged in, it will trigger the new homepage called reservation overview. And for now, we're going to do that with the administrator as well. So we have a reservation overview. We have our default pages set. Now, the only thing that we need to make sure is that whenever Mendix on a project basis checks the roles of its user, that they are attached to the module as well. So we're going to attach these for administrator and for user. And hopefully we will see that that we also need to attach, of course, the anonymous user role, which I forgot. So we're going to add this as to anonymous as well. We're going to say, OK, hopefully we don't have any errors at the moment. Perfect. I'm going to run the application again. I'm going to start my QuickTime player just to make sure that I can show you guys the movie recording. And this will be the iPhone that we have. And then, yeah, as you can see, I have a Make It Native app over here. Now, once the Mendix application has been built, this at first can take a minute or so. We want to make sure that we can scan the QR code with the app. So it's done currently I am up. We have to wait for the native app to finish. I opened the QR code scanner with the native application, as you could see over here. And whenever the native app is done loading, we can simply scan this QR code. We go back to here and you will see that the application is loading. This can take some time for the first round. And then we should be able to log into our native app. And we can do that with the same credentials as we did on the web version. So that means that we can log in with the webinar user, and then we should be able to see the actual reservations that we've made. So we've got our login page. It's not that really nicely styled yet. We're going to log in with webinar_user. We have our password that we entered. And as you can see, it's a nice password field. We're going to reload the app. And ta-da, we have our first list of all the reservations that we made. But as you can imagine, this isn't really that nice yet. We might want to make the aesthetics a bit better. So we can go back to Mendix. We go to our reservation overview, and we start to make some simple in Mendix styling adjustments. So we want to make sure that everything will be displayed on one row. And we can do that easily with the Mendix built-in styling. We want to make sure that everything is rendered horizontally, that there is space between the attributes, and that they are all vertically aligned in a center. So we might also give it a bit of spacing on the top, of course, and on the bottom, so they won't be that close to each other. Perfect. As you can see, by default, the page title is named page title. So let's rename it to My Reservations. Perfect. Then we're going to run the app again. I'm going to go quickly back to my recording of my Mendix app on my iPhone. And you'll see that this already looks a lot better. But we're not just here to see the actual reservation. As the case was described, I'm walking my dog through the park and I just figured out I'm not able to go to the office today, or there is too much traffic, so I want to make sure that I can cancel it. So to do that, we're going to add another action to this page. We're going to call a NanoFlow button, and it's going to be called cancel the reservation, like this. Now, since we're working with a mobile app, and in this case everything is aligned horizontally, using a text label for now seems a bit like an overkill. For that, we're going to use a simple icon. These are all built-in icons from Mendix. So we're going to call this the remove icon, and we're going to say show. Now, this is quite important because one downside of working with offline apps is that you are not able to delete things directly from your mobile phone. So this means that we have to do some trickery at the moment. That means that we need to tell actually the reservation object that we're not going to delete it, but we're going to cancel it. So I'm going to set the Boolean on the reservation, which is called as canceled, to true. I'm going to make sure that the user is able to trigger this NanoFlow. Oh, yep, we're going to save everything. And then we're going to go back to our Mendix app. And there we are. Now we have the buttons. But the problem right now is whenever I press it, nothing will happen because I only updated the specific Boolean to is canceled and nothing else happened afterwards. So this might mean that we need to make a quick adjustment to the database retrieve that we do. So we're going to make sure that whenever we are retrieving all our reservations, we only want the reservations with the canceled Boolean set to false. I'm going to run again. Oh, and then there's an error, probably because I make sure that's the, as I mentioned, you cannot delete stuff. So we didn't synchronize this. So I'm going to go back to the home screen. For now, clear the data. We're going to log in again. The webinar user, the 1, 2, 3, 4, log in. This is always the demo issue that we have, of course. So let's for now just clear the check and see if we can make it work again. One thing that you might notice whenever I press the remove button is that I didn't actually ask the user for permission to do this. So I want to make sure that whenever I do this, so I'm going to say press the remove button to ask for the verification. Are you sure that you want to do this? Because maybe you just accidentally press that button. So for this, we also have an easy built-in function in a NanoFlow, which is called cancel or show confirmation. We're going to ask the user, are you sure you want to cancel your reservation? And for the cancel button, we'll just add no. For the proceed button, we'll say yes. This will return a value. It's a Boolean. This Boolean will contain the value of either saying yes or no, it's true or false. So is it confirmed? We're going to add this again. I'm going to say condition true. And if they canceled, so whenever the confirmed Boolean results in false, so that means that someone said no, then we're just going to ignore the action. We're going to run our app again. And as you can see, we have our list here. Whenever I press the cancel button or the remove button, it will ask me for confirmation. Are you sure you want to cancel your reservation? I say yes, and then it will be removed. And this is the exact example of the difference between hybrid apps and native apps, where as you would have done this in a hybrid application, you would be presented with a fairly simple pop-up message from Mendix itself instead of all the real nice native features that you would have. And the benefit of this is actually that the Mendix application that you see is native. So the components are actual iOS components. So whenever I would trigger this application on an Android phone, it will have the Android basic styling. So it might actually even look different. And that actually gives a big benefit because this also allows for specific implementations of the styling for Android or iOS devices or the separate device sizes. So I hope that was pretty clear. I'm actually not really sure if I made it within 10 minutes, but let's just assume it was within 10 minutes. And that was then our Mendix Native app. So the last thing I wanted to address, because maybe some of you are in this call because of a blog that we wrote or a video that we posted about the hybrid app issue, we discussed it already before, is that the current state of Mendix hybrid actually means that if you're not capable of building those Cordova apps locally, so if you don't have a MacBook available or you don't have any command line knowledge, then it's pretty difficult to create a hybrid app for iOS at the moment, because Apple just rejects your app whenever they see that your application has been built with technology like PhoneGap. And actually this slide was created just a couple of days ago, and today we learned that PhoneGap also, so Adobe dropped support for Cordova and is going to remove PhoneGap in total starting on the October 1st, 2020. So it actually means that even Android apps that until now worked perfectly whenever they were built with PhoneGap are no longer capable of being built anymore. So that's actually the hybrid app issue. And that's also something that we wanted to step into as time series as well, because we saw that there's just a simple need for people that have a Mendix hybrid app, but they're not capable of migrating that quickly enough to native to don't dissatisfy their customers. So in that case, we come back to how as time series we can make you more successful with Mendix. And one of those things are, of course, our custom templates or training, but also a service that we call the App Factory, where we deliver standard consultants that will help you to migrate your hybrid app to a native app. And instead of just going through the entire process of recreating your app, we will make sure that we sit together, we make an estimate or a fit gap analysis on what your native application should do compared to your hybrid app. And then we will start in a quick fashion to completely migrate this app. And depending on the size of your app, this might take a couple of weeks, or it might even be done in a week, because as you saw, creating just a fairly simple read-only or cancel application can take just less than 10 minutes. But most importantly, it might also be the case that you have your own Mendix consultants, which we see a lot with our customers, that we help to train Mendix consultants at our clients. And we have our own time series university. And the time series university is there to help and train your Mendix employees by becoming the best in the field. And with that, we give them the same kind of training that we give our own employees as well. And recently we added a new module to that, which is called the Mendix Native module. And with that, we are going to help your employees getting up to speed with Mendix Native, teach them how to think offline. So what's the offline first approach actually, how the native Mendix architecture works, and some things that are different compared to normal Mendix, like styling native apps is a bit different because it's done with JavaScript. And nano flows, for instance, deliver less functionality than microflows. So those are the things that we will discuss during a workshop, a native workshop that can take about 5 days, for instance. And in those 5 days, we will be doing a bit of explanation, theoretical demos of how it should be done. And then we're going to do a hands-on case of an application that we then can build in 5 days, advancing the knowledge of a Mendix consultant. So that was my part, actually. So thanks for looking at the demo, for forgiving me for having some errors. And I think it's time for our live Q&A.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Frank. That was really insightful, and you were able to resolve almost all of the errors, so that was really impressive. Thanks for that. So we have a couple of questions. The first question is what is typically the size of the investment for making the transition from a hybrid app to a more native Mendix native application? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so what we generally see, it depends a lot on the size of your application. We did some smaller apps that just consisted out of 5 pages with fairly basic knowledge that had simple data manipulation, no single sign-on, and then we were able to do that in a matter of days or in a week. We also worked on some more complex applications that consisted out of questionnaires, like field service applications, and in general, those kind of apps may take a couple of weeks, but it's really depending on the type of hybrid app that you have at the moment, since you also have some investment needed to upgrade, for instance, from Mendix 7 to Mendix 8, or make some changes to the look and feel of your app. So it's sometimes difficult to explain, but in the end, you can sort of count on weeks. We're not talking about months or years, not at all.
All right, yeah, that sounds great. Then the second question is, what does a day of the Mendix Native workshop look like?
Yes, so basically, as I mentioned, we're gonna do a bit of theory, but we're also gonna do a bit of practical implementation. So when we start, we will have our workshop, and that workshop will consist of 2 hours of theoretical training on the day itself, and then we're just gonna explain with some examples and a presentation about the different subjects that you should care about and should pay attention to when you're working with Mendix Native. And then for the remaining 6 hours of the day, we created a custom native application case that should be created by the trainees in this case, so by the people that are attending this native training. And that case has been custom tailored to this specific workshop. So within those 5 days or within the 6 hours, you're actually able to tackle the issue that you are presented with at the beginning of the day in this native app. And then at the end of those 5 days, you end up with an actual working native application completely developed by yourself.
All right, thanks. We have another question coming in. It's a little bit related to the question you answered earlier, but how much customization is required for complex engineering on top of out-of-the-box Mendix Native features?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, when Mendix Native 8 was just released, and then we're talking about August 2019, it was quite limited. So actually too limited to be put to use at bigger applications. However, most recently with the later Mendix 8 releases, so currently we are at Mendix 8.13 if I'm correct, you're almost capable of doing the exact same thing with native apps compared to responsive web apps. So in that case, it really depends on your customizations itself. Do you have specific custom Mendix widgets in your responsive web app? Then it might be required to do that for native as well. But otherwise, if you have out-of-the-box features in Mendix web, then for 99% you can still use that in native as well.
All right, yeah, that's great. So then the question is, what is university training charges? So I think does the investment for the time series university look like? So that really depends. We usually make specific training programs for our customers based on the experience that the participants of the workshop have. So that could be a workshop of a couple of days, and it ranges, the investment ranges between the 1,000 and 5,000 euros. It really depends on your specific request, but we can make a specific offer for your organization. So then the next question is, where can we register and see the details of the workshop? Could you please share the link? We can share some more information after this webinar about the workshop. So we'll definitely send some more information, but we'll do that. Then, does time series offer pluggable widget training, for instance, React, JavaScript, TypeScript, according to Mendix pluggable process recommendation?
Yeah, so that really depends, as Martijn already mentioned, on the type of native training that you want. Like we have a standard Mendix Native training where we just explain the ins and outs of Mendix Native itself, but it might be that you, as you give an example, also need pluggable widget knowledge because you do have customizations that need to be made. And in that case, we can extend the entire workshop as well with some more specific in-depth knowledge on creating pluggable widgets. So although, for instance, TypeScript and React.js are topics that we can cover with our own training program, we also are strong believers of not reinventing the wheel. So there are a lot of good trainings available online as well on creating native or creating apps with React.js and TypeScript, but doing specific pluggable widget implementations is definitely something that we can help with, and is also part of the custom native workshop.
All right, thanks, Freek. So we have one final question, I think, if no more questions come in via the chat box. When does building a Mendix Native application add the most value? In what kind of situations would this be the case?
Yeah, so we already had some examples, of course. If you have a hybrid app, I think the need is pretty high to create a native application if you want to replace your app and keep it in the App Store. But also to think about specifics, like as we gave the COVID-19 crisis as an example, there might be a huge group of customers that you're not reaching anymore because they don't use their laptop or their notebook that often anymore, and they rely a lot on apps. But also, very important, the capabilities of the device. If you look at native apps with Mendix especially, you have access to almost every sensor you can think about with an iPhone or an Android device. So think about Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cameras, and if it's not available yet, then it's fairly easy due to the extendability of Mendix Native to create your custom implementation of it. So it can also extend your platform and make a customer journey better, or the journey for your employees, or for instance, data manipulation.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and what I also really like about the Mendix Native, what you also mentioned earlier, is the user experience. It's really unique, and you immediately know when you're using a Mendix Native application if you compare it to a hybrid application. So if customer experience is important to you, then it would definitely be a consideration to start developing a Mendix Native application. All right, then I think we've answered all the questions. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to us, and then we'd love to help you. Also, if you have feedback about this webinar, we would like to hear it. We always try to improve ourselves. So that was the webinar for today. We really liked it that you joined us, and have a nice day.